Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about diabetes. A lot of people are struggling with diabetes. I think most people don't even know it, that their blood sugar levels are elevated. Just a disclaimer, I'm not going to interfere with your doctor's prescription, your medicine, things like that, or tell you to stop taking your medicine. Go and talk to your doctor about your medicine. I'm going to talk about you getting better. Okay, so it's a bit of a difference. There's a bit of information about me and all of the things on Trustpilot as well. These days, people review everything. So you can go and look there on Trustpilot as well. Just something interesting to start with. There are already 262 names for sugar today. So if you don't find all the sugars in the things you're eating, it's probably because they've got lots of different names for them. That's you can go and look on the internet, William McLeod, Unmasking Sugar. Okay, so if they change the name, the sugar still goes in your body. Okay, so don't be fooled by the name changes. And another thing, diabetes is often a disease of too much sugar and not an insulin deficiency or insulin deficiency. Um so I don't quite understand the reasoning with giving more and more insulin if somebody's already struggling with metabolizing their sugar. So the bottom little thing is there just to get us started. It's not a religion. You don't have to believe everything I tell you. And I'm not going to convince you. You go and convince yourself. I did my homework. It's now time for you to go and do your homework. So listen to what I say. Maybe some of these concepts and things will resonate with you, and it could be life changing for you. And for those who think I'm type 1, I'm special, you are special. All people are special in some or other way, but there are already 12 types of diabetes. Okay, so you're at least 1/12 special if you're a type 1 diabetic. I'm just going to run through quickly. We're not going to discuss them all. Most people probably just know the first two or three. Type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. Type 2, which is really a lifestyle disease and what you've done to yourself. Don't throw rocks at me. Go and research. Gestational diabetes, that really happens to a lady when she's pregnant. And because of the impact of the pregnancy, her blood sugar levels can rise and she can become diabetic. Maturity onset diabetes. Okay, so that's a group. Latent autoimmune, that's if you really a type 1 later on. Neonatal, okay, a rare form of diabetes occurring in the first 6 months of life. Type 3C, where your pancreas really just packs up. Cystic fibrosis they talk about type 4 even as mental things like uh, Alzheimer's, dementia, these kind of things. Wolfram syndrome, so you can get it from some of these rare genetic disorders. Steroid induced, I've seen a guy who's a bodybuilder injecting himself a lot with steroids. Then there can be ones caused by rare syndromes and post-transplant diabetes. So really having a organ transplant can also, in some instances, make you diabetic. Okay. So yeah, let's get into it. A little bit of a shocker to start with. Diabetes has grown at a rate of 600% in only 3 generations. Okay. So if we keep going on this graph and this increase we're busy with at the moment, by 2037, half of the world's population would have high blood sugar levels or full-blown diabetes. Okay, so really this is serious. It is a serious disease. People underestimate it. They think you can just take a few little pills, you're going to get better. People are dying. Their feet are being cut off. They get heart attacks, things like that. So it's a very serious disease if you have diabetes, and you should take it seriously. The UK are world champions for diabetes amongst those younger than 40, with a 40% increase in the past 6 years alone. Okay, so really, worldwide, it's not going well with diabetes. So the conventional explanation, or just a simple definition of diabetes, it's the inability to metabolize sugar. So really, your sugar level on average should be below 7 millimoles per liter. That's in UK terms, if in American measuring, it's 125 deciliters. That's after fasting. Okay, so that's a fasting blood sugar level, 8 to 10 hours. So you shouldn't take food and then go and have it done, because that's not going to give you an accurate reading. Okay. The doctor will draw some blood from you, a vial of blood, and then they do an HbA1c test to confirm, first of all, that you have diabetes. They have to do 2 tests spaced out, on the same day or whatever. What's happening there, Herman? Somebody opened their phone or something. Okay. So once you've had these tests done to confirm that you are diabetic, I don't know what's happening with the sound there, Herman. And then they would either give you some medication or ask you to inject yourself with insulin. Okay. So insulin is a hormone that allows glucose to enter your cells for energy. And it's really the key that opens your cells to let the sugar and the nutrients into your cell. Okay. Glucose metabolism. So there's a strong link between your diet, your lifestyle factors, high rates of obesity, sedentary behavior and diets of rich processed foods and things. We overeat, too much sugar, too much carbohydrate, bad oils, bad fats. Okay. But it's a misconception to say a sugar and carbohydrates don't cause diabetes. You're diabetic or not, okay? Then genetics. I think genetics are over-egged. Genetics do play a role, or your genes, but probably 20-25%. The rest of the things are things you do to yourself, the things you eat, not exercising, a lot of other things, and it's always easy to blame your genes, okay? So pre-diabetes, if you have elevated blood sugar levels, but you're not yet having like 9, 10, 11, those kind of readings, it's normally just a warning to take it seriously if your doctor tells you you're pre-diabetic. Okay, so take the effort of getting your blood sugar test done. Know the number of your blood sugar, and then you can act accordingly and take some measures to improve your blood sugar levels. Okay. Normally, the first thing they prescribe is metformin. Okay. You don't often hear, oh, what do you eat? The doctor doesn't ask you that. I asked a doctor once, though, if you were honest with a patient and you told them, then he said, well, I wouldn't have a patient left. I'd have to tell them they're lazy, they're fat, they don't exercise, they don't drink enough water, they smoke too much and drink too much alcohol. He says, but I can't really tell them that because they're not wanting to hear that or to come back again. Okay? So have a look at those things, but then also have some strategies. Take less sugar. I mean, come on, that can't be a revelation if your sugar is your problem to take less. It's like saying to someone who smokes and they've got a lung problem, just smoke less. Someone who drinks too much alcohol, drink less. So it's the same idea. Okay, why would you then embark on a course where you force more and more sugar into your cells? I just don't understand that reasoning and the way that it's being treated. Okay. So regular exercise, 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes. Walking, swimming, cycling, things like that. So go to the gym. We're not saying run the marathon like Herman and Barbara and Lisa and all of these people do, but if you can do 10 kilos and 5 kilos off marathon, then go and do that, okay? Metformin, it's got so many names already. I think last time I checked, they had about 19 different names, and they basically the same type of medication. It's supposed to decrease your glucose production in your liver, but what it actually does is just turning down the rate at which the sugar or the glucose goes into your blood, but inherently the sugar is still in your body. Okay, there are lots of different kinds of medications available now. You can go and read up about them. TZDs, long-acting insulin, slow-acting, fast-acting, all of these kind of intermediate actions. things that take 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. Okay. If you are type 1 diabetic, I understand you have to get insulin. It's called exogenous. You've got to get it from outside because your pancreas is not manufacturing it. And if you don't, you will die. Okay, so it is important. But later on, we'll talk about that as well. If you can get along with as little insulin as you could. So long-acting insulin provides a steady release of insulin. Okay, a combination. They've got some which are like mediums, and then obviously some the injectable ones as well. Okay. Yeah, some common symptoms. You know, if you have any of these, have it checked out. You might be diabetic. If you're thirsty all the time, if you urinate, especially a lot at night, you get up 3-4 times at night to go to the toilet. You have blurry vision, or you see dots and floaters and things like that, have it checked out. Dry eyes and a dry mouth basically just shows that you're dehydrated and your body requires more water to dilute the high level of sugar that you have. So dry eyes and dry mouth are indication. Lower back pain. If you've got this lower back pain, but you weren't involved in an accident or you didn't fall down the staircase, that's normally your kidneys that come knocking early on. And with that lower back pain, you can often find that symptom 5 to 7 years before they will diagnose you with diabetes. Then neuropathy, people who complain about tingling in the hands, the fingers, especially the toes and the feet and the lower limbs, that's neuropathy. So it's really nerve damage because of the high sugar levels. So if you have any of these or you recognize them, go and have them checked out. So you might say, oh, is there an alternative? Does everybody have to take medication? Okay, there is an alternative. We call it the diabetes protocol. So here's a quick testimony. This is a couple of years, it was 8-10 years ago probably. That's the bodybuilder I was telling you about, the one injecting that got the diabetes from the steroids he was injecting. So normally his blood sugar would be like 15 plus. And if he had things like fish and chips to eat, it'd be 25, which is really, it's very serious. You can actually get a stroke or go unconscious at those high levels, okay? So he came to our house, we had a talk and suggested what he could do. And dramatically, within 1 week, his blood sugars that were 15 plus came down to 5.5, 5.8, okay? Which is a reduction of 63% in basically just a week, okay? And what we are suggesting is food, nutraceuticals. These are things that have been processed out of your food that we just suggest you take and put back into your diet again, okay? Then people also have these monitors on, the glucose monitors, and they often have a little app on their phone that shows them their blood sugar levels. And at this time, they're basically just monitoring. So it's like having a watch. What's the time? It's 7:20 or whatever the time might be. What's the temperature? It's 20 degrees. Okay? So at the moment, I call them stupid monitors. Okay? They're not, you know, a smartphone is a bit smarter than a stupid phone. A smart TV is a bit smarter than a stupid big tube TV. At the moment, these monitors are basically stupid. They're just recorders. Fine. Your sugar is high. Maybe you can do something about it. Your sugar is low. Maybe you can drink orange juice. Okay. So really, I'd like these monitors to become more intelligent so they can give you prompts and be proactive rather than reactive. Because what happens, somebody sees their blood sugar goes up, they inject themselves with insulin, it goes up, it drops dramatically. Now suddenly, now they're drinking orange juice and taking sugar again to get it up because it's gone too low again. So it's not very efficient at this stage yet. You do get monitors that now have pumps linked to them. That's a bit better already. So there's a bit of an improvement. Then hydration, like I said, water. You probably need 2 to 3 liters of clean water every day. And then supplementation, which we really suggest as well, is that you take proper food supplements that address your nutritional gaps, that support your personal needs and help you better manage your condition, especially like diabetes or hypertension. So I'm not talking about the synthetic petroleum derivatives sold in the shops and the pharmacies. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about dehydrated food grade supplements. Okay. This is interesting. I often ask people, so why do you take metformin? Very few tell me I take metformin so that I can get better. No, nobody really tells me. They mostly say the doctor said I should take it. Okay. So educate yourself a bit. And I'm sure anybody who takes metformin will also be shocked to learn that typically your HbA1c will only be lowered by 1 to 1.5 or even 2% by taking metformin. So, I'll do a bit of talking to myself here. They say you talk to yourself before you talk to the shrink. So 1.5%. So let's say this guy's blood sugar was 15. It can lower to 14.77. If it's 8, it makes it 7.8. So the point is, does it make a difference if you can lower your blood sugar level by 1.5 or 2%? Probably not much. You probably won't get rid of some of these terrible symptoms, and you probably wouldn't feel much better because that medication, you can go and Google or ask AI, please list the 110 side effects of metformin, and it will list them for you. And then you decide, is it worth going blind? Is it worth having renal failure? Is it worth even dying to lower your blood sugar level by 1.5 or 2%? That's really your intelligent answer, a question you should answer for yourself. Okay? You make up your own mind. But I'm ecstatic. I mean, I tested this on myself first, and I've been able to reduce my blood sugar level, my HbA1c, by about 47%. Okay, so that's nearly half. So this guy that was at 15 is now like at 7 or less. Or the one that, if you're at 20, those kind of levels, you can make huge impacts on those kind of blood sugar levels. Okay. Then today, telehealth is really also becoming something that's recognized. The electronic communication, information being shared, video conferencing like we're doing now, and then sharing of health information. So the benefits of that is you can really be anywhere in the world as long as you have a mobile signal or you can receive an internet connection. Okay, so a lot of powerful stuff is available today. And you probably get more attention and time from that than you would find if you went to a doctor's surgery in any case. So nutritional and dietary interventions, they can make a big difference to your health and to lowering your blood sugar levels. It's critical that you manage your glucose levels and you prevent these complications because they can be very severe. But number 8, I'd like you to remember this though. Your body is a whole. Just by fiddling with your liver and turning down the rate at which the sugar goes in your bloodstream and then measuring your finger and getting very excited about it, that hasn't magically evaporated the sugar. The sugar is still in your body doing the damage. It's in your legs, it's in your fat, it's in your heart, it's in your brain, it's in your kidneys, okay? So look at yourself as a whole and get the sugar levels down. Don't just go and hide the things in your body. Here's another testimony from a lady called Moima Nahar that we met in 2009. Her blood sugar levels were usually high, like 21. And that's 364/40 in USA. She was already complaining about her eyesight, her liver, things like that. And she was using 38 to 59 units of insulin per day, which she was injecting. Within 6 weeks, she could halve her demand for insulin. And after 7 months, the doctor said she could stop her injections and that she was no longer diabetic. She reduced her blood sugar by 66%. So if you're diabetic or you're not, you probably have heard this term insulin resistance, okay? Insulin resistance. So if you were in medical school, they'll tell you basically you're driving your little car that represents sugar. You're on your way home. You're going to go into the cell which is the garage. And the insulin is the little clicker that opens the garage door. It opens and you drive your car in, and there you are happy now. You're manufacturing all the energy you require. So eventually you push the clicker and there's not much of a response anymore. And there's no obeying of instructions by the cells. And now suddenly you're being told or taught that you are now insulin resistant. Now, the word in English resistant means something like that, or holding back, resisting. In this scenario, if you understand it, there is no resistance from the cell. There's no resistance from the cell. We'll just go one step further and you get to what's called glucose cell saturation. That means the cell membrane, the little garage door still opens, but there's already a car parked in the garage, so you simply can't get more cars in. And the same, if your cells are full of sugar, you can keep sending insulin more and more and more. Your body just won't take it up and it won't metabolize it. So you're not resistant to the insulin or to the instruction. You just cannot obey the instructions anymore because even though the doors are being opened, there's just physically no more space in the cells to force more sugar into them. Okay, so really, this is the traditional way. It's been like this for 77 years. Diabetes is treated by breaking down the door or breaking down the front door. So here's the analogy. I just want to ask you a little question. If you have a problem opening your front door because the lock is faulty, will you A, break the door down, or B, are you going to repair the lock? So really and most people will say, oh, that's a silly question. We'll all just repair the lock, though. We're not going to bash the door down. But that's what we do. That's the way, the traditional way of treating diabetes is knocking the door down and not fixing the problem, okay? So really it's time to educate yourself and to question why you're doing things. A lady told me a couple of months ago, she went to the doctors like you do. I say, I don't. She says, but you do. I say, I don't. She says, and then they gave her medication because they said she must take it, it's good for her. So I said to her, are you diabetic? She doesn't know whether she's diabetic, but she's taking diabetic or diabetes medication. So there's a lot of strange things happening in the world, okay? So a few of the pertinent things to know about diabetes. The sugar may not cause diabetes, but it increases your risk of developing it. And if you have it, to make it worse as well, okay? We've spoken enough about metformin, okay? It really originally came from a herb as well, but today it's all synthetic. We've said how it lowers. So I really don't understand the excitement about this because I don't see results or good outcomes from it in any case. Okay. So we've spoken about insulin resistance. It's really a misnomer. Your cells are not resistant, but the cells are saturated with the glucose. It's full of sugar. So don't blame the messenger. The insulin is only the messenger that sends the instruction, okay? So if anytime I talk about insulin resistance, I'll do that famous little signal to show it's not really that. So here's a healthy human cell. This might be your eye or your heart or your kidney or your lung, wherever this cell sits. And just to give you a bit of scale to this, a cell like that, there are about 40 trillion in your body. And one of them can be 1/12 of the size of the front of a pin. Okay, not even the head. So these are minute little things. On the left, that purple stuff is the insulin. That little Y thing there is the receptor where the insulin goes in to give the instruction. And inside, these smiley faces inside the circle, they are antioxidants. So When when this process happens inside of the cells to create energy, there are waste products that are left over. They call the free radicals, and the antioxidants are really there to mop that up, to clean up your body and to eliminate them. You see that little blue thing there? That's a transporter. It just goes through the cell membrane all the time to fetch sugar or glucose and bring it inside. Fetch, bring inside. Similar on the bottom, it will take waste and take waste out of your cells. So this is a healthy one. Just pay attention. There's the unhealthy one. Okay? The healthy one, nice, smooth, round, smiley faces, shriveled up, dehydrated, lots of insulin on the left, overpowered cells, and a lot of sugar being forced inside all the time, okay? Because there's too much sugar, you have a lot of these red free radicals, and you'll see all the smiley faces are now not that happy anymore because they really get overpowered. There are not enough of them to clean up and the rate at which they clear the cells really goes down all the time, and they become less efficient, and eventually your cell membranes become damaged. You can see the shape of that cell membrane changes. That's why your eyesight will change, because your eyes also shrivel, your heart, your muscles, your calf muscles, all of these get affected if you have diabetes in that way, okay? We're not going to fiddle anymore with that. So can you live without sugar? Lots of people, oh, yes, you can. It's not really true. You cannot live without a certain type of sugar because part of your DNA actually contains sugar. So ribose is the bit of sugar that you should have. Can you get along without added sugar? Sure you can. Can you get along with less sugar? Sure you can. Can you get out with any sugar at all? No, you couldn't, because your DNA would then basically disintegrate as well, okay? So ever increasing amounts of insulin is required later on because to keep your blood sugar levels down. The channels in the membranes, they can no longer take that force. They become distorted. It becomes energy inefficient. They're overpowered really by the medication that forces sugar into your cells, okay? So the cells are already damaged, they get overpowered, they get forced in there, and then disingenuously, you test your blood sugar. You don't need to be a brain surgeon. If the sugar is not in your blood sugar reading will go down, but it doesn't remove the sugar. It's still somewhere in your body doing damage, okay? So I wouldn't be that excited by that. And certainly it's doing damage to your kidneys, to your eyes, to your lungs, your liver. So this is not really science. And to my mind, in the first instance, it is actually doing harm. So it's not really, let's say, the old pure view of the way you should treat people has really taken a bit of a knock. And over the next 5 or 10 years, you'll probably find more and more people experiencing ever increasing and worse impacts on their health because of diabetes. It really takes 5 to 10 years to develop eye problems when you start getting all of the eye problems. So the uncontrolled blood sugar, what it does, it also elevates your blood pressure. And because the sugar elevates your blood pressure, the smallest blood vessels in your body, your eyes, your heart, your kidney, your prostate, if you have one, they get affected by the higher pressure first. And you can see there are lots of scary pictures down there of people having problems with their feet especially, okay? But different parts of your body can get affected. Eyes, kidney, feet, those are the things that get affected a lot and most often, okay? Then some people tell me, oh, their pancreas is dead. So your pancreas, the beta cells in the pancreas that manufacture the insulin only make up about 2% of the whole pancreas. So let's say you're manufacturing no insulin at all, your pancreas isn't really dead. And Can you repair and renew the cells? Well, the science is iffy on that at the moment, but I believe as long as there's blood flow in your body through any organ, you can improve the quality of the organs by sending proper nutrition to them. So how much insulin do you really need? About 1 unit for every kilogram of your body weight. So if you weigh 50 kilograms, you need 50 units a day. If you're 100, you need 100 units. The insulin you inject from the outside is only half as efficient or effective as the insulin produced by your body. So if you're injecting 100 units of external or exogenous insulin, that really would equate to about 50 units if your body was making it. Okay, so insulin also affects, diabetes affects your insulin sensitivity. How do you react to the insulin? How sensitive are you to the insulin? And that can also impact your health, and it could also vary from person to person, okay? Can your kidney function be improved or restored? Lots of people come and say, oh, they on dialysis, nearly on dialysis, kidney function is going down. Is there something you can do? There's a lot you can do. The first thing you can do is get rid of all the toxins and the poisons. Okay, so in the toilet spray, the washing powder, the scented candles, all the things burning in your house, the ammonia in cleaners, all of those toxins, the things you smell that are so impactful, you know, when you can smell them, they are bad for your health. So early interventions, get rid of those, start feeding your body properly, detoxify. You know, there are lots of health benefits from cleaning out your body regularly, getting your digestive tract going properly, and making sensible lifestyle choices and changes. So here's just a quick little bit on volatile organic compounds. And what they are, they're endocrine disruptors, which are really, most of them are chemicals in your environment. And there are now studies indicating that if a lady is pregnant who has no history of diabetes, your cleaning products can make you a type 2 diabetic and the unborn baby even a type 1 diabetic because of the impact that these chemicals have on your endocrine or your hormonal system. And particularly the insulin is a hormone, okay? So what kind of science can we have and how can we understand what's happening here? So number one is to know too much sugar and carbohydrate is not good for us. So limit that, less sugar, less carbohydrate, okay? And then people say to me, oh, but honey is natural. Well, cyanide's natural. Petrol is natural. I'm not drinking petrol. I'm definitely not taking cyanide. So sugar is sugar, and we all try and dodge this thing where there's also always a little excuse for more sugar because it's very addictive in any case. Then I would add soluble and insoluble fiber because it will mop up excess sugar. It'll clean out plaque, lower your cholesterol. You know, it's just all around good to make your elimination and the cleansing of your large and small intestines. And historically, there are studies like in the 1920s, 30s, up to 50s, which show that dietary fiber containing soluble and insoluble fiber can be more effective at lowering cholesterol than modern day statins. Okay, so you normally get to the age where you're over 50 or over 60, and then the doctor wants to give you a statin. Okay, I'm not going to say a lot about statins, but I'll say the following. Most people, if you ask them why would you take a statin, they say it's to lower your risk of getting a stroke or a heart attack. So the logical conclusion to my mind would be, if they do work and they're effective, I wouldn't expect many people who get heart attacks and strokes to be on statins, would you? And that's actually shocking to see. Nearly 70% of people in hospitals and getting heart attacks and strokes are on statins. So you decide whether, if it was 50-50, I'd say it makes no difference. Okay. Curcumin, cinnamon, lipids and sterols, all of these things have been shown to be useful and helpful to handle and deal with the symptoms of diabetes and to stabilize blood sugar levels. Magnesium, that's involved in about 400 different body functions, and people with diabetes in research shows that they're short on magnesium, they're short on vanadium, and they're short on, what was the other one? Well, lipids and sterols, essential fatty acids. So the things that make those cell membranes supple are processed out of our wheat and wheat products today. So bread no longer goes moldy. So you're really not getting those oils in from your bread unless your bread goes moldy. Okay? Hydration. I've spoken about hydration. You probably need at least 2 liters of water per day. If you're bigger, let's say over 70 or 80 kilograms or more, you probably need closer to 3 liters of water. Again, I've told you about the dry mouth and the blurry vision. 60% of your body is composed of water, 75% in the muscles, 85% your brain. So you're like a machine, but your body is very intelligent. It takes the water, first of all, to protect your brain and to protect your heart. That's why you have these other, all the thirst all the time, the sweating, things like that. We're not going to do that one. Let me do another one here. There's a personal story of Barbara. Barbara in California. And she's, well, this is quite a while ago. She was a nurse for 22 years, and her blood sugar was just out of control. She had a neuropathy, her kidneys were failing. And by the end of 2016, she said she was close to the end. She's had enough. And she was on 18 different medications. She told her children it's not going very well with her, and that she'd soon have to go on dialysis, but she didn't want to do that, although her kidneys were failing. So she attended one of Louis' workshops at that time. She learned a lot more about health, to detoxify, take the toxins out, feed your body properly, taking the shakes, calcium, magnesium, sugar balancer, and vitality pack. And within 8 to 16 weeks, she said she was taken off all 18 medications. And it made a huge difference to her life. And today, she runs the diabetes clinics in Big Bear in California. I think that's what she said. There's another guy here, Dave Thomas, who was 34 years old at the time in 2017 when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. He already had problems with his vision. And he went to the optometrist local and thought the guy was just going to say to him, well, you need new specs or whatever, when he was told that he's probably diabetic and he should go and see a specialist. And he had no history of diabetes. Okay. So he said, after my meal, my blood sugar, the very first time he checked, it was 30.5, 550 USA, which is very, very serious and very, very high. And after he'd taken the products that was spoken about at this presentation he went to with his wife, his first experience was to learn that your blood sugar level should be much lower. And they did a HbA1c, and it was so high, 440 or 24.4, that the doctor actually injected him his first insulin in the surgery. He said his blood sugar dropped a little bit to about 250, and it was still double what it should have been. And after they'd taken the products we recommended, his fasting blood sugar levels went from 350, which is 90 to 22, to 8 or 1446 in the first 3 days. Okay. He said, this blew my mind. How can something so simple do this? How can it be so effective? I'd not been able to have a controlled blood sugar for 8 years. And this came down in the first 3 days. Okay. He said he also lost weight. 10 pounds, it's probably about what, 4 kilograms, something like that. His blood sugar average dropped to 7.2, and he could halve the amount of insulin that he needed to inject himself. So it's really amazing stories can be achieved. You can have great results. And as I said, don't run to the pharmacy now. Don't run to the health food store. You're not going to buy these things there. You're going to buy magnesium, which is made synthetically. You're going to buy, I don't think you would even find lipids and sterols there, but you can probably find fiber and things like that. So really, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about pharmaceutical grade nutraceuticals, not synthetic petroleum derivatives. Okay? So talk to the person who invited you, get more information, make a decision that you are going to make a change in your life. Okay. So yes, you can fix this. No, you don't have to break the door down. There are lots of alternatives. Okay. But the main goal should be to lower your demand for insulin. If you want to save your eyes, your kidneys, your heart, your brain, just imagine if you can lower your demand for insulin, even if you're not diabetic, by 20%, 30, 50%, how different would your life be? Okay. I checked out research a couple of weeks ago, and they say that if you can lower your demand for insulin by 10%, for every 10% you lower it, you can add 2 more years to your life expectancy. So if you do 20%, you can do 4 years. If you can do 30, you can add 6 years. It makes a big difference to your life expectancy if you can get your blood sugar under control. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing that, and Herman can stop recording now. And then we can have